Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Cosplay Crunch. Each week, we sit down to talk about all things cosplay, including personal experiences, useful tips and advice, horror stories and hot takes, and sometimes the latest news and drama. I am your host, Zavage Cosplay, and this week on the podcast, we have my BFF, Viverra, aka Meaghan. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, I'm so excited and honored to be here. So proud of
Isn't
you.
it? Oh, isn't it wild that this is like, it's kind of wild that we're doing this. I don't know.
I know. It's like everything we've worked toward. No, you've worked towards.
It's mostly just because like I said, I think before I had so many conversations with people in Discord or at conventions and they were like,
Mm,
why isn't this just like a podcast? Because I feel like the collective experience everyone needs to hear, at least it's mildly entertaining, I think.
definitely. You have
It's
a
just this,
lot to talk about. We will always have a lot to talk about.
so we met in 2016, I think. January of
Something like that.
2016 at
Yeah.
PAX South.
Yes, I remember. You were in Borderlands. I was in
Yeah.
Borderlands too, wasn't I?
Uh-uh. I
No,
know
I
what you were
was in
wearing.
my Soul Survivor. That was my Fallout costume.
You
Bad memory.
were, I think that was the first time you wore it.
It was. It was.
Yeah. And I remember you were in that little area of the convention center with the cafe.
Mm-hmm.
The old area. It was the old convention center area with the old cafe, and you were there, and I don't even remember like who I knew that you were with. It must have been someone
It
because
was. I don't remember who though.
I don't remember either, but I
Hmm.
know like Carol and I walked up because had a mutual friend that was there with you, and I was like, "Oh my God, who's this pro cosplayer?" I was literally in my cosplay I made from Goodwill, like bed sheets and like rags, and so was
Whatever.
Carol, and then you were like in this like wild costume, which we're going to talk about later and go into all that because I want to talk about, a lot more related to that whole experience. But you were in this wild costume, and I was like, oh my God, who is this person? And I was like, does she hate me? What's
Oh,
happening? No,
oh,
not
it's my RBF.
that's the joke. No, I was like, oh my God, who's this pro cosplayer? And then I guess somehow we made an impression on one another because after that, it was just like history. Like
Hmm.
after that, we never literally stopped talking to each other up until 2024.
Yeah, literally.
But I don't remember what conversations were had at that convention and I don't remember why, but I'm glad that we were drawn together because I just don't remember at all, really. It was so
Yeah.
long ago.
Yeah. I mean, I think I might have approached you and talked about the fact that I had a Borderlands cosplay too. So it was probably part
No.
of it because I already had Gage at that point, and y'all were in your Borderlands. So that was like an
Yeah.
easy like icebreaker. Like, oh my God, you guys look great. I have a Borderlands cosplay too.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But you were like literally looking the most stunned of everyone in that group, right? Like everyone in that circle of people, and I was just like, "Oh my God, it's a professional cosplayer." Because I was like literally only cosplayed at that point for maybe 2.5 years, maybe, and like the first 2 years were like Hot Mess Express. So, yeah. Anyway, um, I want to go into your background a little bit before we get too far in the episode, and I want to talk about your fashion degree because I don't know if everyone knows this, even if they follow you or know about you, but you are professionally trained and you have a fashion degree,
I am. Yes, I have a bachelor's in apparel design and manufacturing.
which is crazy. And I want to talk about like, did you earning that degree influence your want to cosplay, or did you want to, were you cosplaying before then? And the fashion degree kind of came as a result of you liking cosplay.
So cosplay came first. I
Okay.
started cosplaying in, oh God, I'm about to date myself, 2005. So next year will be my 20 years of cosplay, which hurts to say out loud. But
20. Oh my God. Wait, no. 2005 is when you started. Yeah. Yeah. 20 years of cosplay
yeah,
next
isn't
year.
that
Oh
insane?
my God. I
Ugh,
think
but
there are people listening to this that aren't even 20 years old.
oh my God.
It's okay. You can join the geriatrics of cosplay with
Yes.
Carol.
I'm the old lady of the group for sure. But
No, but no, so you started cosplaying at 2005 and your first
mhm.
convention was Acon, right?
Yeah, it was Acon 2005, and by that time, like I was going to college, trying to figure out like what I'm gonna do. Like, what am I gonna go to college for? Like, I don't know. Well, I'd started sewing at that point, and was like, well, I like to sew, I like cosplay, so I guess I'll do that.
And what was your first
That's what I
costume that
did.
you made?
Oh God. Technically it was Karen from Naruto, and she had literally just been released in the manga, so there wasn't like color released. So when I cosplayed her, I got the colors completely wrong. Nobody knew who I was because she'd only been out for like a week. I never do that again.
Wait, so
But
you literally picked I didn't know I actually didn't know this. You picked a character that literally was only in black and white, and you're like, I'm just gonna assign colors to this and then
yeah,
make it.
yeah, yeah.
That's
I don't know what I was
insane.
thinking. I think I just liked her outfit and was like, that looks fun to try to make and not too difficult. Because it was just like a little zipper jacket that like split and like shorts. So like I bought the shorts and I just made the jacket. It was the only thing I made, but it was like my first full completed garment.
Did you wear that to Akon?
I think I wore it to Anime Fest for the first
Oh,
time.
really?
I think it was A Fest 2006 or 7 because the first couple years I cosplayed, I actually, shockingly enough, my very first cosplay I bought, which I
From
know
where?
like, eBay,
Wait, what was it?
Kagome from Inuyasha, and I
And
still
they
have it to this day.
wait, was it someone that had made the costume and listed it on eBay for, or was it was a factory?
It was a factory. There wasn't a whole lot of those back then, but Inuyasha was so big that
Hmm.
it was like one of the accessible purchase costumes. Actually, it's not bad. Like I feel like it almost holds up today. Like I'm
Really?
honestly shocked. Yeah, and I had a wig. I bought a wig. I found one also on eBay. And it
Oh my
wasn't bad
God.
either. Like
Do you have this still?
I have the top. I don't
Do
know
you
if I still
really?
have the skirt because at one point it didn't fit me anymore. But I definitely still have the top, and I wore it on my 10-year cosplay anniversary. So I'm like
Well,
20, 20
bust it out for 20. I want to see this thing. It should belong in a museum.
years? Oh God. But it wasn't bad and it was fine. Like that's kind of like how I got into cosplay was like Inuyasha was like the fuel of that, and so it has like a really special place in my heart because like I love Inuyasha. It's the reason why I got into cosplay. So you know what? I should frame that at some point and put it on the wall. That would be cute. But I digress.
I want to
After
come see.
that, I know, right? My grandmother actually made a couple costumes for me after that. So she made me Winry from Full Metal Alchemist, and she made me my own version of Sexy no Jutsu Itachi.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So I wanted to do like a female Itachi from Naruto. And so I had this like idea of doing the like Akatsuki cloak and then like kind of like shredding the end of it. And she did it. Granny's like the best sewer I know ever, period. Like she made my Winry, which was like a full head to toe like coveralls in 2 days.
I can't
And it
believe.
looks like a professional like made it in like a
Oh
month.
my
Like
God.
she's
I can't
incredible.
believe you had like a
Incredible.
grandma that literally was so supportive of not only you cosplaying, was making your costumes when you were younger.
And then she taught me how to sew.
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
sweet. So your first,
I
you went to
know.
ACOM was your first convention, and you wore
Hmm.
the Inuyasha cosplay?
And that was the good one. I actually bought two costumes. I bought Chi from Chobits, and it was a hot mess. Okay, this is my favorite story to tell. I did buy a wig from Amphigori.
Oh, you
That
did.
was the first and only wig I would ever buy for Amphigori
Wait, wait,
because I
wait, wait,
bought.
wait. Pause. Explain
Okay, okay.
explain to the children and to
Oh
me
God.
honestly what
Okay.
Amphigory is, because I know of it in concept and in theory, but I feel like most people that started cosplaying from like 2010 and later have no idea what Amphigory is.
Yeah. So it was the pre-Arta wig stop, and it wasn't great. It was kind of the only thing we really had other than like eBay where you could buy wigs. So, I mean, it wasn't great. That's
Were
all.
there like
Arta's way
was
better.
there like were there lace fronts on there? Were there like
No, Relation did not exist. No.
were
Well,
there
at least
like
online from like a cosplayer perspective. Not
mhm,
that it didn't exist in like real life, but from a cosplay
sure.
perspective, I didn't know it exists. Let me say it that way.
And then
And my
like did
cat
they
is
have
here.
like oh AJ, did they have like colors? Like what colors did they have? Were they just like reds, browns, whites, blacks, or was it like anything weird like blue or like green and
I'm pretty sure they had the weird colors too. I feel like I remember seeing like green and blue on the website, the one that I bought was blonde, obviously for Chi from Chobits, and it was just like one of those super long, like knee length wigs.
Okay.
And they didn't have one that had bangs. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, and cut the bangs. Easy enough. Like my mom, who's a hairdresser at the time, like could help me. And so we got the wig ready. She pulled it. We cut the bangs and they went, and the the bangs stuck straight up.
Like
And I
vertically?
vertically, I don't know why, and there was nothing we could do to make this wig lay flat. And I literally went to the con and my bangs were like this,
Because
like up.
your mom is a hairdresser or was a hairdresser, so like she knew like okay, well let's use these hot tools, let's use these products, and like
Yeah,
nothing would get the wig to
didn't
come
work.
down. So
It just wasn't meant for that.
you went in Chobits cosplay with your like alfalfa like straight up like Fry Futurama bangs.
Yes. I will never release those pictures online
And
ever.
there was no shame.
Oh, I don't know. I was like, oh my God, you look so good.
Really? They were like
Yeah.
stunned.
I
Like
mean,
stunned.
especially I feel like at the beginning of cosplay, like it was even more supportive. Like we were
Hmm.
all like an even smaller group of like super nerds that we were doing this. Like I didn't tell anybody in my high school that I was cosplaying. I didn't
Sure.
want to be like I was already weird. I didn't want to be like mega weird. So, it's not like today where it's like normal. But yeah, I mean, the whole community was always so supportive and would still, compliment you and say you look good and it was nice,
So
so I didn't care.
yeah, no, that's just that's so cute and so funny. I don't think I've seen a picture of this like with the bangs, but I need to. I
I have
need
to
to see a
dig it
picture.
out. I think it's like hidden in one of my like drives somewhere.
Okay, let's go on a hunt. So you had gone to conventions, you had some experience with your grandma teaching you to make cosplay, and then you went to school and you got your undergrad in fashion design. What was that process like? Because I think that you'd be hard pressed to find many, if any, cosplayers that have a degree in fashion design with like college level education on garment construction. Like, how did that influence your cosplay as you were like going through your degree and like after?
It definitely helped. I mean, I had realized like, because Granny kind of taught me like the basics and I took it from there. And I kind of realized I was doing a lot wrong. Because I was like half taught by her and half self-taught. And, like I was taking those commercial patterns and just throwing them on the fabric. And I didn't realize you're supposed to do like a certain direction and follow the grain line. I had no idea. So I learned how to do like the commercial patterns right. I learned how to do all the sewing correctly, the finishings correctly, serging. Didn't know that was a thing until I went to college. And we had like 10 grand baby locks, like the air
Oh,
ones that thread themselves.
so
Loved
good.
those. And Jukis, like the industrial machines, which
Where
I
you
mean, I
could
still
sew
don't
through
have one of
bone if
those.
you wanted to.
Literally, and they were so fast. If you barely touch the pedal, it would go boom. And you had
Yeah.
to be like careful because you could like easily sew through your finger. A girl actually did that when I was there. But anyway, it was really helpful because, I got like that professional level of not only sewing, but we went into like pattern making, like how to make patterns from scratch. Um, you know, Other things that weren't really related to cosplay, but like as far as cosplay goes, pattern making. At the end, I actually took on like I forgot what it was called. It was like a study. It was like a separate study program,
Hmm.
and I learned like 3D patterning. And so we had Optitex at the time. That was like one of the new 3D pattern programs. And that's kind of how I got into learning how to do like 3D patterning with like a 3D avatar, which I still use today because I use Clo 3D today sometimes to do my pattern making. And it's because I already knew how to do it
Can
from
you give
school.
like a quick rundown on what that even is? Because I think most people hearing 3D pattern making, they're like, what even
Hmm
is that?
Let's see, how do I explain it? Well, first, like you can make like the pattern pieces digitally, so like you don't have to like sit and measure. Because there's a couple different ways to like make patterns from scratch. There's quite a few actually, but like industry, there's like making them from flat paper, so flat patterning, which is based on like measurements. So measurements, math, boring. And then there's like draping, which is like dress form. So you put like the drape tape on the dress form, and you can put like your actual fabric on it to see how it lays, and then you cut around it, add seam allowance, pattern. But 3D patterning is like taking all of that and putting it into a computer where you can draft patterns in 3D, or like in my case, like I went and got a 3D body scan of myself. And so when I do that, the patterns are actually fit to me. And I really like the Clo 3D because you can actually like draw in 3D on the computer, like on like your digital body,
Uh-huh.
and show like where you want your seam lines to be. And then you click it and it'll auto make like a pattern piece for you.
Are you
And then you can
serious?
kind of like adjust it. Like, 'cause it's not perfect. So you have to still do like quite a bit of like modifying,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a lot faster and in my opinion a lot easier because the most hated part sewing cosplay is patterning for me.
Yeah.
So
No, I think
having the 3D helps.
for most people, I
Yeah.
think patterning is like the most laborious and like fitting and like making a mock-up and all that. Like once you have your pattern and it's final, going through the rest of it is usually pretty straightforward a lot of the time, but getting that pattern done is the worst. So would you say
Yeah.
that most of your projects that you work on now, like your patterns start in Clo 3D?
Honestly, yes. Yeah. I would say a good majority of them do, just because I find it a lot easier and quicker, and I get to like visualize it before I do like a physical mock-up in the real world.
That is so wild. That's so next level. I'm over here literally just like, okay, let's like make this mock up a Muslim and then see how it works. Because I don't know. I feel like I'm averse to technology sometimes, and I'm like, I I want to do what I know how to do, and I'm like too nervous to try something else. But I've seen you use Clo before, and in theory, it looks really cool. I'm just like, I don't know. It's wild to me on. So it kind of demonstrates like, okay, you have all this fashion background,
Hmm.
and you have all this training, and that you even had some experience with this 3D program, uh, in school, which I didn't know. And I know that when I started cosplaying, well, not started cosplaying, but rather when I met you, I my sewing game shot up so dramatically because you taught me so much every time I worked on stuff with you, which was wild. Like even dumb little things like, oh, this is the right way to orient your pins when you're pinning fabric. I have never forgotten that. And every
Oh, I'm
single
so
time, no,
glad.
I'm not kidding. Every single time I pin anything, I think, oh, Meaghan told me to pin this way. And
Oh
I'm
my gosh,
like,
I love that.
it's wild. Like, no, like I mean, because that was the time when I was trying to learn so much and absorb as much as I could. And like at the time, like I knew Carol and we were friends and she'd been cosplaying for a long time. And I met you. You both have been cosplaying for a lot longer than when I even started. And you both already knew how to sew.
Hmm.
So the amount of experience I got from you was just beyond. And I mean, it was so
Good.
evident too, because whenever we work on stuff, and you would sew something, I'd be like, I don't even know how to conceptualize what you're doing right now. Like, it was
Yeah,
crazy.
I can tell you though, I know it hinders me sometimes because like I know the right way to do it, and I really struggle in my brain to be like, okay, but if I do this, it's faster. But my brain is like, no, that's wrong. You can't do it that way, and I it makes me really slow.
Yeah.
So I'm a very slow cosplay maker for
I
sure.
feel
You know
like
that.
I it's slow but careful. And no, I mean I get that. Okay, so something I want to talk about also, and then we'll move on from fashion, but I want to talk about fashion design and designing a original piece versus translating a design to uh, a costume, because they're two very different things. And you have experience with both, but I want you to talk about like kind of your, I guess, journey with both aspects and what you find appealing about each one or what you find challenging about each one.
Okay, so I'll say that I feel like cosplay maybe contributes to this, but I actually do struggle designing original pieces because I am so used to having that final visual in mind. Like, this is the character I need to make, this is the outfit I need to make, that I actually do struggle to design like unique pieces. Like, I have to look at a lot of different inspiration. It takes me quite a while. So I don't know, or maybe that's just how my brain works, which is exactly why I don't work in the fashion industry. I struggle with that. I feel like I more enjoyed having something like kind of already conceptualized that I could work towards versus like, what can I design out of nothing? And I feel like I get into like analysis paralysis when I'm trying to design an original piece. Like there's so many different silhouettes and seams and fabrics. I could do literally anything, and I feel like I get overloaded.
Right. No, that makes
So
sense. A lot of
yeah.
people, I mean, I'm sure you've gotten this a ton over the years, but even I've gotten this to an extent from my friends and family and friends that don't cosplay specifically. They're like, oh, you know how to sew so well. You should go on Project Runway. Or, oh, you know how to sew so well. You should go on this show. Like, Amazon has one now called, like, Next in Fashion. Like, you should go on that.
Hmm.
And I'm like, a cosplayer? Like, a cosplayer is not a designer.
No.
Like, you, as a cosplayer, you have to know how to take some 2D elements and design them in ways that will work in 3D and on a human body,
Mhm.
especially elements that are like floating or like, all of that. But it's not the same as designing a complete new garment from scratch, especially not
Mm-mm.
one that is like haute couture or ready to wear. Like, that is not the
Yeah.
same thing as costume design. And cosplay in itself is not the same thing as like costume design, right?
Yeah. I completely agree. And gosh, not only that, the time crunch on those shows, like, could never.
No,
Carol could probably do it, but
well, we were talking about that, and I
I
was like,
could
I
not.
have nightmares sometimes that I'm locked into a room, like RuPaul's Drag Race, like Project Runway style with cosplay, and I'm like, they're like, and I literally flop, and like I make something horrible, and like I literally, that's why I asked, on the first episode, I asked Carol that question because I was like, what would you make, and like who would you want to compete against? But yeah, maybe one day a convention will like bring it as like an event. I don't know.
They used to do like iron cosplay, which I feel like was similar to that, where they had like a bunch of craft supplies, and each contestant would have to like quickly make like a really quick, crappy cosplay to like
Where?
win. I think they used to do it at ACON and maybe other conventions. I don't know if it still
Oh
exists,
my
but I remember it
God.
was called Iron Cosplay. I remember that. I never
Really?
went, but I heard of it.
I have to Google that. I've never
Yeah,
heard of
I
this
mean, we could
before.
do like our own version of it and just run the panel. I feel like
Yeah,
we could do that. It'd be fun.
go get some bins at Goodwill and be like, all right, no.
Girl, how about my leftover fabric?
Oh my God, no, but take the oh,
I have a
speaking of
lot.
leftover fabric, okay, pivoting. We're gonna go out of fashion design and cosplay. Do we know what happened to the Hancock fabrics?
I knew you were gonna ask
The
me
shipping
this.
container is not in my backyard, contrary to popular belief. Where is the fabric?
I don't
Do
know.
do we? No one knows.
No, no. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I haven't really heard anything about it.
We
It
just
was
don't talk about
years,
her.
years ago. I know. Literally, like we had a Hancock Fabrics in my college town where I went to school, and that's where we bought all of our fabrics for all of our like outfits for school, all
Yeah.
of our projects. So, and we didn't have a Joann's. So I
Is
hope
there a
they had
Is
got
there
one
a Joanne's
eventually.
there now?
Surely, I
Probably.
would think.
I mean, not
But
for long.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what
No, I'm
happened to. I
kidding.
mean, maybe.
Oh, oh.
Oh,
No, they're fine. They're just they're in pre-bankruptcy. They're in the light bankruptcy light,
we'll
not
see.
bankruptcy major, so it's fine.
I heard they weren't paying their vendors.
Oh, well. Anyway, so okay, going to the next step. I want to talk about Texas convention landscape. So I feel like there's like the past, there's the current, and there's the future. And the Texas convention landscape has changed so wildly, I feel, even from
Hmm.
when I started cosplaying. What is your perspective as someone who started in 2005 cosplaying in Texas? Like, what did it look like? Like, you don't have to say specifically in 2005,
Hmm.
but like in your like early era of cosplay, and I'll say like before, from like up until you graduated college, maybe. Like, what did conventions look like in Texas?
I mean, I'll just say, just from my perspective, I didn't really go to a lot of cons outside of Texas until I was a lot older. So my view is Texas only. So I'll
Right.
say that. But at least like from a time perspective, 2005 to now, it was kind of like I was talking about earlier. It was a lot smaller. We were the weirdos. If you see people walking around in cosplay downtown Dallas, it was like, what the hell is that? It wasn't like, oh, it's cosplay. Like people didn't know what it was. As far as like the convention itself, I feel like I'm having like non-flashbacks of like yaoi paddles and glomping. Oh my God. So yeah, people would carry around giant wooden paddles and smack people in the ass. So that was one. Glomping.
That was gone by the time because I started in 2013. The iPaddles were done at that
Thank
point.
God.
Yeah.
It was awful. Thank no one ever hit me with one, thank goodness.
Oh my
But
God.
there was that. There was glomping. So people would like run and like jump and like hug or tackle people. And like I remember I had a girl running at me once, and I was like,
Did
"No,
you even know
no,
them?
ma'am, no,
So
no."
random
It was
people were like
normal.
literally physically abusing people. Like literally, that's what was happening.
I mean,
But they were like, "Oh, it's
borderline.
all fun. Like
Yeah,
I might like throw my body on top of you and tackle you to the floor." And I
it
also
it was possible. Yeah, yeah. But I
um
mean, I feel like the dealers' halls were a lot smaller. There
mhm,
wasn't a lot of like artist alley dealers' room. It was slim pickings for sure. And obviously, like costumes were way lower of a quality, a caliber than we see today. I mean, I think it's kind of what you've talked about in your previous episodes too. Like, we didn't have access to a lot of that stuff. We didn't have access to the materials, the tutorials. Cosplay was new and people didn't know how to really make armor. It was cardboard,
yeah.
and sewing was still kind of like a questionable thing. And so, we all looked pretty ratchet and we didn't care and we had a great time.
Do you
So
think
it was awesome.
was the artist alley, because nowadays artist alley and dealer's room are usually about the same size, like a lot of the time. Like the artist alley is so really
Hmm.
big. Back in like the early, like I guess mid to late 2000s, was that the same case, or were the dealer's rooms really what was present and the artists were kind of like here and there?
I struggle to remember, to be
Hmm.
honest. Um, feel like they were probably smaller, but also the conventions were smaller. I mean, ACON and A-Fest were a lot smaller at the time. I honestly don't remember very well.
Did Akon start in the Anatole?
No, it was when I was okay. When I was going, it was the Sheridan, but it wasn't called the Sheridan. It was the Adams Mark.
In downtown Dallas?
Yeah, in downtown Dallas, where Anime Fest eventually moved. And as it went from Adams Mark, I guess Sheridan like bought it and rebranded it. And so then it became the Sheridan. But it was that hotel. Like that's where I went to my very first convention, like on Pearl Street. So every time we went back for A-Fest,
Uh-huh.
as of like a couple years ago, I was like always going in there with like such nostalgia. Like this was my first con. Like I've been
Right.
going here for 19 years.
We're
So I'm kind of sad that A-Fest isn't there
oh, I
anymore.
know. I'll talk about that in a second too, but like were ACON and AFest the two main conventions in at least the Dallas Fort Worth area? Were there any
Yeah.
others?
I mean, those were the only ones that I went to. There might have been smaller ones that maybe I didn't know about. I think Allcon has probably been running for quite a while. That's a really small convention. I think it's always been really
Does that
small.
still exist?
I think so. I think so.
Was that the one at the airport?
No, that was Anime Dallas, which I think they moved to the Hyatt, which the Hyatt was the old Anime Fest hotel. So they all kind of
Mix
share, I feel like,
around,
the same
yeah.
core hotels. Yeah.
Huh. So AFest and ACON were definitely there when you started. And
Hmm.
then did you ever go to any of the other cities? Like did you ever go to Houston for any conventions or San Antonio, or not until like later?
Ooh, I went to IkiCon 1. I remember that. So I
IkiCon
went to
in Austin?
yes, IkiCon number 1. And I remember because I think my mom and I found it on accident. So we used to go to Austin all the time. And we found out about it. So she took me, and literally the hotel was like half falling apart because they were renovating it. And it had like the plastic tarps, and it was the tiniest convention I've ever been to. Still to this day, there was so little going on. And I remember I met a voice actor there,
Uh-huh.
a certain
A certain voice actor
voice
that's
actor there.
publicly disgraced and that we won't mention his name of.
I won't name names.
Hmm.
But I remember being uncomfortable because I was like 16 at the time. But anyway, yeah, it was very small. So I went to IkiCon 1. I I don't think I went to anything in San Antonio or Houston until later. And I went to Tokyo and Tulsa like once in
Oh,
college.
really?
Yeah. Because I had
How was
friends
that?
in Tulsa. Ugh, it was small.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. I never been to Oklahoma Convention. I always say that we should go, but okay. So, I want to. So then, when I started, right, I started in Houston. So, owning Con was my first convention. There was also obviously like Delta H, which is like a smaller one. There was obviously Henry. And then my first convention I remember going to where I like had my mind blown apart was San Japan. So I went to San Japan in 2015. And when I went there the first time, it was the first con out of Houston, and I was like, "Oh my God, this convention is wild because like
Yeah.
I had never been to a convention of that caliber before, like with that much like organization, guest, artist. Like I had never been to the Riverwalk before. I don't think, maybe I had, but not for a convention. And that was insane. And then it was maybe the next year that, well, that was in like what, 2015? And then in 2016, January is when I went to PAX, which is the same
Hmm.
location. And then that same year, I think I also was my first ACON, and that was at the Anatole by then.
Yeah. Oh, that was the golden era of Akon, was the Anatole.
I know.
I miss it.
I said maybe they'll go back.
I don't think so. I think with that water park they built, I don't think they'll ever let a convention in
Do
there.
you think ACON's gonna come back?
I don't know. If they do, I mean, I do hope they choose a different venue because I feel like the Irving Convention Center is just too small.
It's really
Like
small.
Akon used to be like the biggest con in Texas, and it's far from it now. And it's hard because like that's my home con. It was the
I
very first
know.
convention I went to. Like, and to see like how different it is, like as of like last year, it's a
It's
little
sad.
disappointing. I know
Yeah,
that they're going through some changes, and I really am rooting for them. But well, part of that is I have to get a better venue, a bigger,
absolutely.
better venue for sure.
Yeah, I will see. Here's the thing. If it's a convention that I really care about and I think they're trying and they're doing good things, I will go and I will support that convention through thick and thin. Like Acon is the perfect example of
Hmm.
that. We've been
Yeah.
we've been all around the DFW area for that convention and
Yep.
I mean, I didn't go to the fairgrounds outside in the summer of Texas
I
like
did.
you. But I guess for reference for other people too, Akon had moved to a bunch of different venues, and one year because of restructuring within their ownership, I think primarily, and also funding, they had their convention at what we call the fairgrounds, which is where the Texas State Fair is held every year,
Hmm.
and pretty much nothing else really happens there throughout the year except for the Texas State Fair, and then they have like a venue or two here and there that people might perform at. But anyway, Akon said, "Well, perfect. We'll just go and like go into this place in the middle of Texas where it's Dallas 110 degrees in the summer some days, and we're gonna space out our programming amongst the fairgrounds, so everyone has to walk amongst all the different buildings to get." To where they need to go without any public transportation to really get them there, nor a hotel access that is within walking distance to the convention.
Yeah, it was really rough. I remember people were like passing out from heat stroke because I only went on Saturday,
Uh,
but oh my God, it was so hot. We were miserable. And literally, our group ended up leaving and going to the Anatole to go to the water park.
did you really?
Yeah, we
You
did
were like, okay,
when we
we,
hung
we
out
need our
there.
old Acon back, and you literally went to the Anatole and got like water park
Yes.
passes.
Yes, we did.
I live. I live. Um, what do you think of the future of the Texas convention landscape? So obviously we have a lot of new cons that did not exist
Hmm.
before. I think Anime Frontier comes first to my mind, right?
Yes.
Which
Yeah,
is
I
like,
think that's the new big one, especially because it's backed by Crunchyroll.
yeah, I think being backed by Crunchyroll is definitely a plus. I will say that, like, obviously we went last year. You had been the year before as well. I
Hmm.
think that was this year was the third year, this past year.
I think so.
And
Yeah.
from my perspective, like they had everything right. Their organization was right. Their cosplay department was right. The contest went really easy and well. It's in a pretty good venue given that there's hotels right next to it. There's restaurants nearby. There's places to take
Mhm.
photos. I think it's sickening.
Yeah, I'm happy it exists. And I mean, part of that is again, it's backed by Crunchyroll, so it's money. I don't think a lot of people know that Crunchyroll's corporate headquarters is also in Dallas.
Right.
So that's part of, I think, why Anime Frontier is based here. But I'm glad at least we have, a big con coming in, especially like if the sad event we were to lose a con, we would have, Anime Frontier almost as I hate to say this, like a
A
backup
backup.
for like a big Texas con because we need that in Dallas. It's Dallas.
Right.
Like we can't not have at least one big con here.
Because, like, in my perspective, from when I started cosplaying, the only convention that's been consistent since I started cosplaying with year over year growth and programming is San Japan. That's the only one.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that because a lot of the conventions I feel like hit a point and they just stagnate and they stay the
Mm. It's kind of crazy. And then, I don't know, like, I feel like Houston's cons are, they're there, but they're pretty small. Except for the one that no one goes to. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Texas overall has a lot of conventions, right? Like Dallas has
Mhm.
a lot. Like DFW area, I would say there's probably nowhere else in the country at least that has as many conventions annually that DFW area has.
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate because I mean we have sure I'm gonna miss a
Oh
ton,
my
but
God.
like the ones that come to mind, ACON, A-Fest, Anime Frontier, we have WeaveCon, Nishi Fest, AllCon, Anime
Anime North
Dallas,
Texas, maybe next year.
Anime North Tech. Oh, I forgot. Well, they had like a hiatus for a couple years,
Yeah,
but and then there's like a ton of like smaller ones too. So yeah, there's a lot here,
there's a
as
lot.
there should be. I mean, it's a really big area.
Right, which is probably also why a lot of the conventions around here are able to book a lot of voice actors because, like you said, Crunchyroll is headquartered here.
And Funimation.
Oh, really? They're also here?
Yep.
Do they have more?
I've been there. I had a friend who worked there and he took me on a tour like years and years and years ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wild. Um, okay, I want to go back to your Fallout costume because I think that
Okay.
you have a really good perspective to share with people. Now, this was the era of Facebook pages, right? Instagram existed, Twitter existed. People in cosplayers used Twitter and they used Instagram, but Facebook pages were definitely the predominant, like, this is where the cosplayers had their following, this is where the cosplayers shared their work, right? And
Yep.
you made your Soul Survivor from Fallout 4 completely from scratch with leatherworking, custom bodysuit, like it's wild, and it's the album art for this episode actually. But you were showing your progress. You actually did a whole build log. But there was also like very mixed response from the viralness that it got, and it did go viral. So I want you to talk about like
Yes.
briefly talk about all of the work that went into it, what you published online, and all of what happened after.
Okay, so Fallout has always had a super special place in my heart, which is why this was such an important cosplay to me. Like, I literally have a bathroom that is Fallout themed. So let's put that into perspective. I love Fallout. And when I saw like the Fallout 4, bodysuit be like released and like what we saw was going to look like, I was like, I have to make this. Like, I like this a lot more than the Fallout 3 bodysuit, even though I like Fallout 3 more
As
than
a
Fallout 4
game, yeah.
as a game. But I liked the design more. It was more interesting. It had more seam pieces and it was challenging. And so, I made like just a plain white bodysuit in the same fabric that I planned to make the bodysuit in. And it was like I just used like a base commercial pattern, but it was like the really simple one. And when I put it on, I was able to draw out all the seam lines. And so that's kind of how I made like all the complicated like little pieces. It made it a lot easier to have like that as a starting point because then I could cut out all those pieces, put it on a piece of paper, add seam allowance, done. So I did that for like the bodysuit part, and it was my first delve into leatherworking. It was something I'd always wanted to try, but I feel like leatherworking is one of those things, especially like in cosplay, that is not as accessible
No,
to
it's
learn.
not.
Like there's not tutorials. They were behind paywalls. Like you had to pay to learn how to make leatherworking. And I took a look at Fallout and I'm like, okay, it's kind of distressed, it's run down. This would be like a really good opportunity to learn because it doesn't have to be perfect. And that actually will probably add to it if it's got like some mistakes or
Right.
issues because I'm gonna be tearing the shit up anyway and making it kind of dirty and worn down looking anyway. So it was perfect. And I did actually have a friend, who's Johnny Hybrid, who helped me at least with the very basics of leatherworking and kind of know like where to start. So I probably couldn't have done it without his help and just like that beginner
Hmm.
knowledge. And we had Tandy Leather here too to help because I could also go in there and they could tell you a little bit more about it. And so the leather armor is like a pigskin. So it is real leather. And I just kind of use like paper to kind of draw out the patterns and then cut out all the actual leather pieces. And the most grueling part of this was that the process of putting the holes in before you can sew it. So it's not like you can't put it through like a machine, at least
The
like I
thickness of
couldn't
what
put
you
it through
and the
my
thickness of
machine,
what
let's
you
say
had
that.
too probably could not have gone through a machine unless you had like I don't even
A
know.
leather
Yeah.
machine. Yeah, you have to have like a leather sewing machine or you'll like mess up your machine. Trust me, I tried. But honestly, I feel like part of that look that I was wanting to achieve was that hand sewn look. So was like, okay, I'm just gonna commit. It took so long. I literally watched the entirety of the animated Clone Wars while I made this costume, all of it. And I remember after I was done with that costume, my hands hurt for 3 weeks from hand sewing the leather. Like it hurt.
Jesus Christ. So after you
So,
spent all the time researching these methods, creating this costume, you
Mhm.
published a tutorial, right?
I did. I ended up going on, oh my gosh, I just totally blanked on the website.
Was it
But it
Reddit
was
or
like,
no?
no, 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 it was, oh my
501st or
gosh.
something?
No, but it was a popular like building website with like prop building and oh
Okay.
my gosh, I can't believe I totally forgot what it was.
Maybe it'll come back to
But
us.
it will. But I posted like build progress. I had taken pictures and I figured, oh, it could probably like help someone because again, this was like kind of hard to access. I didn't do like a super detailed tutorial because especially like at the end, I was just in a hurry to get it done.
Right.
So I didn't get to take as many photos or videos as I wanted, but at least I kind of showed the base process of how I made it. And that was super rewarding in more than one way. Like first I had someone's grandmother message me and say, your build guide helped me make a costume for my grandson. Thank
Aww.
you so much. I got a picture of him in it with like the little lunchbox from the game. It was so cute. I loved it so much. That alone was just worth it. But on top of that, the Fallout Facebook page shared it.
The actual like Fallout, like Bethesda's who
Yeah.
makes that, right?
Yes.
Bethesda
Yes.
Fallout page shared your build log or your finished picture or what?
It was my finished picture with a link to my build log.
Gotcha. How did they find it?
And I have no idea. I guess there was maybe somebody who worked there that maybe scoured the forums and saw it.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know. But I remember that post had 17,000 likes and it was very overwhelming. And me being who I am, of course, like was reading comments.
Right.
And oh my God. So that was the thing that you're talking about, the going viral
Right.
component of it. There were a lot of people who like played these video games but had never made anything in their life. They'd
Right.
never crafted, they didn't cosplay, they didn't know how much work I put into it.
And
And I
everyone's a
remember,
critic and no one's an expert.
oh my gosh, they definitely always had something negative to say. I mean, not to say that there wasn't positive comments. There definitely
Sure.
was, and I was very appreciative of those. But like the negative ones were stupid. I mean, it was like it's not dirty enough. Well, that was like my finished photo. I hadn't
Right.
made it dirty yet, but I eventually did. But at that point, I hadn't, or got a bunch of weird comments about like the collar, I guess, hid my neck, and people were like, "Where's her neck?"
Oh my God. So there was just
I don't
all these
know. It
comments,
was
like, well, and then there were
nitpicking.
also like obviously like body shaming comments too that were like,
Yes.
oh, like her ass isn't big enough, or
Yes,
like,
that was common.
yeah, literally like all
Yeah.
these men that were all in, the followed the Fallout page were all just like all like
Hmm.
commenting, and obviously like yeah, the majority
Yeah.
was probably not like these awful reads and like body shaming comments, but those comments were probably like the first time that like such a deluge of them had come through something that you were
Hmm.
directly involved in, right?
Yeah, and I would honestly say, at least on that Fallout page, and these also got posted to Reddit at some point, and it was the same. It was the same thing on Reddit, and that's kind of where I stopped looking at stuff on Reddit. But I would say like 10 to 15% of the comments were negative.
Ugh.
And it was like, nitpicking, body shaming, things like that. And it was a little tough. I mean, we always like to say, oh, we don't care about those people. We don't care.
Right.
But like when you see it in front of you, especially when you see it like over and over, it was a little difficult
Yeah, and
to
and
see.
especially if you're not someone that's consistently exposed to that level of audience, like
Yeah.
how are you not going to go and look and see what people are saying, right? Like if it's someone,
Yeah.
like if it's like Kylie Jenner and she's posting a picture on Instagram, like I doubt she's looking at any of that social media. But
Yeah.
like as a
No.
cosplayer, it's like, oh my God, like this got shared by a company I love. This is like a huge opportunity, or like this is like the big moment that like is so cool to be recognized, and then you see that's the feedback and you're like, oh my God. Like
Yeah.
obviously, yeah, like even if it's 10 to 15% of the people that are saying something nasty, that's still not good for anyone's mentality, right? And it's easier to say don't read the comments versus actually doing it, especially when there's 17,000 people that have liked it, let alone how many people seen it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that like kind of
But I
a
mean, yeah, it was fine. I mean, eventually I did stop reading the comments for sure.
you didn't read them indefinitely forever?
Definitely not.
Was that a moment where you kind of realized, like, I think that a lot of people are chasing a social media game, continuously, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of validation for people comes from likes and recognition. Was that like a moment for you where you kind of realized, like, this is kind of whack? Or like, did
Yeah.
your perspective change on social media and cosplay after that moment?
Maybe yes and no, because that was like probably around like what I would call like my peak of cosplay when I was doing it like a lot more. And I definitely was more invested in like social media management at that point. But it definitely contributed, I think, probably to the start of the decline of me kind of wanting to taper off a little bit of social media because it was very exhausting.
Hmm.
Having to like deal with negativity. And I would just also get like a bunch of questions, which, I love to be helpful, but when someone messages you and said, "How do you make this?"
Right. That's always the one that's like,
I
okay,
would just,
well,
yeah, I mean, in this case, I actually had a blog,
right.
air
You
quote,
could point to
blog I
that.
could link to the build guide and say, well, you can go read this. And if you have specific questions, you can ask me. But it was a lot of questions too. And so like, I tried to answer as many as I could. But yeah, it definitely got overwhelming there for a little bit. But at the same time, like you said, it was very validating. Like, to feel like I feel good enough that the creators of what I made shared me. Like that's a humongous honor. And
Yeah.
I'm so thankful to the Bethesda team for doing that. Like at that point, I don't care about any of the other negative comments because that is such an achievement to
No, it
me.
is.
And I'm very proud of that. And I'm very thankful because of, again, how much I love these games and to be validated in like my abilities was really nice. So, you know, I, it was both because I liked having that confirmation and then I just kind of had to learn to disregard the negative comments at
Right.
that point.
Moving on to something lighter, I want to talk about convention hotel horror stories. We have some. Um, I think you might have some that I don't even know about potentially, or maybe ones that you experienced where I wasn't there. But we have a lot of shared hotel experiences because
Hmm.
we go to conventions a lot together, and we specifically stay together a lot of the time. So
Yeah.
I guess I want to talk. I want to put them on blast. I don't know. I want to talk about the Sheraton in downtown Fort Worth. I want to talk about that one.
Literally, bitch, that was the first one that came to my mind immediately when you say horror stories, because that was the top. That was definitely the worst experience I've ever had, which again was so disappointing because I was so used to staying at the Sheridan in Dallas that I loved,
Right.
but the Sheridan in Fort Worth at the time, was a dumpster
Let's go
fire.
for it. So, it was ACON of, I don't remember what year. It was like 2017 or 2018. It was 2 years ACON was at Fort Worth Convention Center.
It was
And
the first year they were at that convention center.
yes, because we learned after
Yeah.
that and we never stayed there again. So
Yes.
we stayed at this hotel and we were that year, it's kind of relevant. We were competing in a costume contest, but like that part's kind of relevant to the story. But it was Meaghan, Viverra, it was Owl and Coffee, Carol, me, and then Lisa? Kadia
I think
Kauai.
so.
We were, I think maybe, I think that's correct. We were all in a room, sharing a room at the Sheraton, and I guess there were two big things that were problematic that I remember. Well,
Mm.
no, there was also the issue with the towels and the
Yeah.
hangers.
And the hangers.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there was Towelgate and Hangergate, where, like, in order to get a clean towel, we had to present and exchange our dirty towels to them. But obviously, when you're in a hotel room and you have four people, they usually only give you three towels to start with. That's, like, for some reason, the standard in industry standard. I don't know why. I think if you're staying at, like, a resort, like the Gaylord, they give you more. But at a normal hotel, they give you three. Um, the maid in service would refuse to give us a towel unless we gave her one, but we had no towel to provide to her, so we had to like
Yeah.
barter for towels, and we're like, we'll give you hangers if you give us a towel. So we were like bartering items from the hotel room to get items that we needed for the hotel, and like, forget having your towels changed, that was out of the question because they oversold the
Mm-mm.
hotel and they were so low staffed and they didn't prepare at all for the convention.
No, they wouldn't even give us extra hangers either. I remember that because we were just trying to hang up just a few costumes. I think we only had like two or three
Yeah,
hangers, and they just refused to give us more. And I almost feel like, and maybe I'm remembering this wrong, I feel like, didn't we end up swiping some towels off like the maid's
I think
cart
we
when she
had to
wasn't
literally
looking?
treat it like a contraband and run for our lives.
I think we
And I
did.
think that I literally would have been like, oh my God, I'll offer you like a bottle of tequila for some hangers, please. Or like, we must have had to barter something. Like, I don't know if we had to sign a pact with them in order to give our firstborn or what, but something had to be provided to the Sheraton gods to give us hangers and towels. But that wasn't even the biggest problem. There was the floor.
Yes, that was absolutely the most disgusting hotel room I've ever been in. And the fact that we just walked around and we look at the bottom of our feet and they are pitch black in dirt and grime was so nasty. And I remember going down and we went to complain to the hotel, like nicely, like, hey, like our floors are kind of
They're
dirty
kind of
and like
soot
our
black.
feet, yeah, it turned our feet kind of black. Is there any way we could like change rooms or just get it clean? And they're like, the carpets aren't
Wear
dirty. You're lying.
socks.
Your feet are
They said,
dirty.
wear
Wear
socks.
socks.
Wear some socks, you nasty little piglets. That's what they said to us.
Yeah,
That was so good. And then the last thing I remember was the parking because they
yeah.
had like a gated lot with like barbed wire and everything. But we had asked them about parking or we had prepaid for parking. It was something that we had already
Hmm.
paid for parking and they told us where to park. And we ended up parking in a free lot because the parking
Yeah.
garage was full. And
Hmm.
we didn't know it was free. And so at checkout, we told them that we had parked in the free lot and they said, oh, well, you already prepaid for parking. So we're not refunding it for you. And then that's when hell broke loose, and we were like, the
Yeah.
hangers, the towels, the barter system exchange, the black feet. This wait between the black feet with the dirt, the bartering. It sounds like we're in the Middle Ages, and we're literally at an anime convention. Anyway,
That's what it felt like.
so that was all experience. Um, I also remember the Sheraton that we've been mentioning for A-Fest. And I don't remember, and that hotel is a pleasant experience generally, but I
Hmm.
don't remember if it was with
Hmm.
you or with someone else. But I was in the elevator where the elevator lights turned off and the elevator fell like 4 floors.
Oh, Jesus. It wasn't with me.
Okay, it was. Do you remember that year we stayed there though, and we were in like a really tall floor, and Carol was there. That was the year that Carol like fell asleep with her eyelashes in the bed and like all that. So that I was in the elevator with someone going up to the room or down, and the elevator lights turned off and fell like a few floors, and I literally like pissed myself.
Oh my
It was
God.
so
Yeah, that
scary.
would scare me a lot. I remember people used to unscrew the lights in those like elevators for some
Oh
reason, but that's
really?
it.
Maybe they were loose because well, that doesn't explain the elevator falling. Anyway,
That's
um,
scary.
do you have any that you remember, like from your convention? Like, I mean, I'm sure you've been in experiences where like Acon has like evacuated people or something with fire alarms, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, nothing crazy. That Sheridan Fort Worth experience was definitely like a fluke. I've never had anything like that. And it wasn't only the issues we were having, it was also how the staff spoke to us when we tried to bring up the issues.
Yeah.
Like I remember they were like the manager was so disrespectful to
Well, I
us.
think that like
Like,
whenever you're at an anime convention, they associate you as being like a lesser like
mm,
status. And they're like,
yeah.
oh, well, we don't have to take your concerns seriously because you're not really an adult, you're a child. And they're even though you're paying us with a valid credit card and we're transacting in exchange for goods and services, we don't have to treat
Hmm.
you like you're an actual person because you're here for an anime convention. And anime is for babies.
Yeah, basically. But honestly, I feel like that's the only like truly negative experience that I've had, unless you count like the years that, what was it, the Grand Hyatt at San Japan would require like
Oh, and they still
wristbands to
do.
get up to the
Girl, they
room,
still
which I
do.
mean, I get, but
It's annoying. It's
really,
because that
like,
hotel only has
you know,
like 5 elevators. It's like it's not built right, first
yeah.
of all, but like they have to have wristbands to let people up to the rooms. But then at the same time, it's like I don't want to wristband. I don't want to wear a wristband the entire time I'm at this
Hmm.
convention. And if you lose
Yeah, and you can only have four
4 people,
people.
and if you lose it, they charge you like
Yeah.
$100.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I mean, because like I don't feel like we were one of the people cramming, 10 people in a hotel room. We'd maybe have five, six max, which I don't think is absolutely outrageous for a hotel room. We were always respectful. We cleaned up after ourselves. So I don't know.
yeah,
I think it's a little excessive.
right. We weren't turning bathtubs gray with like a Sharpie marker or whatever the Homestuck cosplayers were doing.
I was literally about to say we weren't Homestuck cosplayers, so yeah. But I mean, honestly, no, I haven't really had any other bad experience.
Moving on. So, hot topic. Um, I want to talk about qualifications that should be expected from a cosplay judge. Not a
Hmm.
guest, but a judge. Because I feel like what sometimes you'll see with younger conventions or smaller conventions, maybe conventions that aren't cosplay heavy, or maybe conventions that are, maybe more Comic-Con like conventions, they will sometimes emphasize cosplay judges that have high followings, but don't necessarily have the history and the repertoire of skill to back up the judging aspect of what they're expected to do. Um, and like obviously cosplay guests in a general statement does not require you to make anything, right? Like you don't have
Hmm.
to be a craftsman to make cosplays. But I feel like I wanted to get your opinion on like cosplay judging and like your thoughts on, entering contests. Like, do you look at the judging panel to see what their like work looks like and what their credentials look like to like gauge your want to enter a contest, or like does that play into it all? Like, what are your thoughts on like just cosplay judges in general and like what credentials they should have or like all that?
I mean, I wouldn't say that I look at judges personally. I know some might, but I mean, I guess at some point when I am competing, I would kind of look at their background. I feel like a lot of times if they're in Texas, I probably know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of have an idea of, their level of craftsmanship. But it definitely is important to not only be like a crafter, but a really good crafter. Just because you have to know what to look at when you're judging. Like you have to know like what good seams look like. You have to know to look for like pressed seams, clean work, finished hems, So I think it is really important to make sure that your judges have a good level of craftsmanship to be able to judge, especially like if they're judging like master's level. Like they need to be master's level to be able to identify what those are and how you pick like a winner out
Mm-hmm.
of those. So, they need to make sure that they have like a higher level than like an average cosplayer for sure.
That's a good point. I never thought like if you're judging master's level, you should be at master's level. Otherwise, how do
Hmm.
you know how to judge that? Right?
Yeah, I would say it becomes tough if you don't.
Right. It's like we can sit at home and we can judge, Project Runway, like garments. We can judge drag queens on RuPaul's Drag Race, but we have not competed on those shows before, nor are we fashion designers or drag queens. Well, I'm not a fashion designer, but or drag queens. Neither of us are a drag queen unless you have some wigs hiding in your closet that are stacked up that I don't know
I
about.
wish.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like until you walked in the walk, I don't know that how you can actually judge a contest, especially a craftsmanship based contest.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a contest where there was no prejudging?
I'm trying to think. I don't think that I've competed in one with no prejudging, but I have sat in the audience.
Oh, what's that face?
Prejudging should be a requirement, I should say. I'm thinking of one convention in particular that I will not name that decided the time for the judges to ask questions was on stage. And I feel like 80% of the people didn't make their outfit.
Oh,
So,
really?
and they even said, "Oh, I just bought this online. I thought this would be fun."
Was that awkward for like
Um,
them and also like the audience? Was it awkward for everyone?
Very, very. And I feel like when you're speaking on stage, it's even more intimidating than just walking. So a lot of people were almost like having full-blown panic attacks, like trying to speak on stage. They probably didn't even know they were supposed to.
Oh my God. Wait, so like was there
Yeah.
music playing or like what how because I'm like trying to conceptualize how this would work, and I've seen some clips of cosplay contests where like the judges panel will be like they'll do their walk, they'll whatever, and the judges will be on the stage, which I also think is bizarre. Like when they're on the stage like facing the audience and not like on the ground looking at the stage. I'm like that's
Hmm.
kind of strange because you're seeing the back of the cosplayer and the cosplayer has to turn to you in the corner. Anyway,
Hmm.
but were they like walking and then stopping the music and then giving the microphone to judges and having judges ask them questions?
Yes. Yeah. And so the judges were on stage, but they were kind of at like an angle, and like so the cosplayer would walk across the stage to the judges, and they do like their little walk and then they would ask questions. And I don't know, it was a little
So it
uncomfortable.
was
I
like
don't think that was the best way to
it
do
was
it.
oh, interesting. So it was like a combination of like it was almost like a prejudging in that they were walking strictly their attention was on the judges, not on the audience
Yeah,
for the most part, and they were going
right.
to the judges, like presenting to the judges, not necessarily to the audience, and then
Yeah,
the judges would ask questions. So it was almost like an
yeah.
audience, like a live studio audience watching a prejudging session with music. But the
Yes.
prejudging session was like, maybe 30 seconds long and they only asked like one question each.
Basically, yes. And then the added part of stage fright on top of
Cause
that.
oh my god,
So,
because there's a
oh, it was tough.
oh my gosh, that's wild. I've never been to a contest like that in person. All of my contests that I've watched or been a part of have been prejudged. Or if it was like if I was just watching the contest, I there was no the judges are usually well, I think the more craftsmanship focused contests, the judges are on the floor and
Hmm.
there's no questions being asked because it's also like you don't when you hand someone a hot mic you don't know what they're going to say. Like, I
No.
think 101 of entertainment is generally do not give that microphone to a random person because you do not know what they're going to say, how long they're going to talk, what they're going to do, what they're not going to do. Like,
Girl, this guy went on a full-blown tangent and we had no idea what he was talking about. It was very concerning. We were all looking at
lots
each
of
other like, what
concerning.
the hell is this guy talking about?
But, no, I mean, I'll rounding it back to the original question. I think that, I don't know. I think that when I enter a contest specifically, if I'm debating on entering a contest and that they announced a panel in which I personally do not know that they could judge at a level at which I would expect, I probably would hold my costume for a different convention. And that's specifically because the stigma of like the big flashy thing gets the gold, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
while these cosplayers might not judge in that way, there's no telling that they have a history or a proven record of demonstrating a master's level of skill. So who's to say that they aren't going to pick the big flashy thing to give the gold, right? They're
Yeah, that definitely happens.
right. And so
Hmm.
that's why I'm like, and also my personal bias is like I talked about this before, but like when I enter a contest, if I have something that wins an award, I'm not going to enter it into anything else again personally. And if something doesn't win, either the competition was so stiff that they just beat it out, or it's maybe not contest worthy because of the amount of elements I put in or amount of time I spent or whatever, right? But I don't want a third element to be the judging panel is unqualified.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So anyway, I want to go to our submitted question. I don't remember what it was, so we're gonna find out together. Oh, this is like a chill one. Okay. Hi, Cosplay Crunch. I listened to the first three episodes, and I really, oh my god, and I am really enjoying the show. Oh my god, reading at this time. I wanted to ask for your opinion on small cons versus big cons. I have always wanted to go to a large convention like Katsucon or San Diego Comic Con, but I have been nervous to attend an out-of-state convention due to cost, crowds, and navigating new spaces. I generally stick to smaller conventions with about 5,000 people or so. Which type of con do you prefer, and what is your advice on attending a large con for the first time?
Ooh, that's a really good one. So there's definitely pros and cons of
Pros
each
and cons.
size of
Haha.
convention. Yeah. But I mean, I do feel like it's probably better to start with a small con. Like my first convention was, a con. I feel like at the time it was pretty big. And it can be a little overwhelming for sure. And I do feel like you have more of a sense of like community in a smaller con. But at the same time, the bigger convention you go, the more people you can meet, and you get to see a lot more diverse people. There's a lot more to see, there's a lot more to do. I personally love giant conventions because they're never boring. There's always something going on. And even though it is big, like we still have that sense of
Hmm.
community, even at Dragon Con, Katsucon, San Diego Comic Con. So if there is ever a moment that you're feeling like overwhelmed or lost, you can just like ask someone for help and like where do I find this? Or, for whatever you might need, like someone will help you. So I don't think you should be intimidated by a big con. They are so fun and so worth it. I still stick by like San Diego Comic-Con was amazing.
Hmm.
If I could ever get tickets again, I would love to go back. Just because like that one's a little different because it's
Right.
industry. But, cons like KatsuCon, DragonCon, you get to meet a lot of people that you don't, when you go outside of your local community. And so, I'd gone to Texas cons for years and I kind of started building the community of people that you see over and over
Right.
and you start, recognizing them. Oh, hey, what's up? But, you get to expand that when you go to KatsuCon, and especially nowadays when social media is so big, it's really easy to like connect with those people, follow them, continue to talk to them after the convention, and then you get to grow your network even more and have even more friends around the country. And like, you never know, you might end up making friendships that, you might just go visit them there one
Oh,
day. And
true.
and I don't know, I love it because it's so much fun. There's a lot to do. I definitely would highly recommend just trying it once. And if you don't like it, go back to your small
Yeah, I
conventions.
will say I'm gonna open this letter again because I want to make sure. I will say that obviously they do cost more, right? Like going to an out
I
of state
do.
con, you're paying for flight or you're driving and paying for gas. The hotel cost, I mean, for the big conventions, it's probably going to be more than what you're used to paying if you're going to like a more local, like medium sized to small sized convention. Just the rates of the hotel are going to be more expensive. Um, but and the badges will usually cost like more, like not like maybe like I mean, honestly, now badges are getting so expensive. Like, you'll go to like a small con and it'll be like $85 for a weekend, which is like crazy compared to what they used to be. I get inflation, right? I understand. But like, badges are probably not the most markup that you're gonna be. I mean, maybe like I don't know, Katsucon maybe like 110. So like 85 to 110. What is that, like 20-ish dollars, $25? So like is that math? Something like that. Um so like that's not like the biggest deal, but like yeah, flight, increased hotel price. I mean, if you're splitting it, oh, and but that's also I would say go with someone because
Yes,
I think that
definitely.
for as many people as you can meet, which is totally true, and as many cosplayers that you can find and like artists that you can find that you're not going to find at your local conventions in the state or city you live in, having a buddy with you is really smart, not only for like safety reasons, but also because you know, I feel like you could go to a convention and find people and like think it's so fun, or maybe you are more of like an introvert, or maybe you just like traveling by yourself. But I would say that going with someone will not only ensure that you have at least one person to hang out with and do things with the whole weekend, but that also you are able to just make sure you have a good time and be safe. Because I mean I think the fewest people I've gone to an out of state convention with actually is maybe like four people. I don't go with small
Hmm.
groups, but I mean, I would say have at least one person to go with. And with navigating new spaces, I mean, I would just check everything online. Like whether it's usually Artist Alley and Dealer's Room, they put maps, right?
Hmm.
A lot of times they'll have like maps of the convention center. Go on Google Maps, look around the space that you're in, find out where your hotel is in respect to the convention center, and then also see what's walkable from the convention center. That way you know. And yeah, I mean, I would say go for it. I mean, look, if I had never gone to like a Katsucon or a San Diego Comic Con or a PAX or any of that, I think my perception of conventions would be a lot different. And I think that there's definitely
Hmm.
space for small cons for sure. And I think that you shouldn't just say, oh, well, if it doesn't have 50,000 people, I'm not going. Because I mean, the experiences you're going to get are still valuable either way. But I would say don't be scared, just plan, have a game
Yes.
plan and budget,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. One tool like you talked about, like planning the area that I really like, I don't feel like people know exists, is like Google has a section on Google Maps called like My Maps, and you can actually like designate. I think we've used it before. You can like designate like certain areas that you want to see. So like when I plan a big convention, I'll put like, okay, the airport, if you're flying
Mm-hmm.
in, is here, and here's the hotel. Here's where I can go eat. Here's our grocery store. Here's something I might want to see. And then like I already have like an idea of the area if I need to like go anywhere. Like I'll tag all the coffee shops, something like that. So I agree, like planning is a big component of that. And when you come prepared, I think you will probably come in feeling more comfortable.
Oh, and the only thing I thought of is when you're going, remember that you are not driving. You cannot have 10
Hmm.
IKEA bags full of shit to bring with you. You have to fit it into luggage. And I'm saying this specifically because the girl I'm looking at right now in the camera is infamous for her bags and her luggage.
Hey, I fly Southwest, so I get 2 free check bags, okay?
Well, and you use the two free check bags, the carry-on bag, the backpack, the smuggled fanny pack, the bag and the hoodie.
I mean, I'm just utilizing my
You're
space.
paying
I'm
for it
maximizing
anyway.
my
You're
space. Yeah,
maximizing. You're just
yeah,
you can't afford not to. If you can
exactly.
bring it, might as well.
And if you can lug it through downtown Atlanta and have your wheel
Oh,
break on you, yeah,
girl. When the luggage broke at Dragon Con and we were taking the train and we had to lug that thing through all the train stations and up the stairs and
it was horrible.
that I forgot about that. That was awful.
So maybe don't be like
Well,
me.
also too, oh my God. And then when I flew to Katsucon and I brought my like buffalo leather armor, oh my gosh, buffalo leather armor for Dimitri. And I thought, oh,
Hmm.
this fits in the luggage. It's fine. Because I never conceptualized like weight versus what would physically fit in the bag. I never had an overweight
Hmm.
bag at that point. And then
Yeah.
my bag was overweight and I could not do anything with it because all I had was one suitcase and then one rifle case for my spear. And the woman was like, "Where can you put this?" And I'm like, "Woman, lady, this is like a leather suit of armor. I'm not gonna wear this. I should have worn it on the plane, girl. I should have put that shit
Oh my
on." And they've been like,
gosh.
"The plane's overweight.
Yeah.
Someone needs to get off."
Oh my God. No, I've learned from that too. And like I bought one of those like luggage weight scales that you can like it's like little and you could throw it in your bag because I've learned because I'm also an overpacker and I can make sure that when I'm packing my 2 bags, I can make sure they're both underweight versus like one might be overweight and one is
Yeah.
under. So recommend a luggage scale for cosplayers, especially ones like me who tend to overpack.
That and also you
It's
can
helpful.
put like a lot of times makeup will be under usually makeup is never over 3 ounces. Foundations are an ounce and everything else you have is a powder or a pressed powder or something like that. That is heavy. Put that in your backpack and don't check it.
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah. That's what I
yeah, you don't have
usually
to worry about
do.
it breaking, but also
Or losing
or
it.
losing it. Yeah, losing it, breaking, and it's lighter, so it doesn't add to the weight. We can literally talk about this forever because I have a lot to say about packing.
Yeah, we could.
We're gonna go ahead and wrap it up and then do the outro, but I need some water first. I have a lot to say in the outro. I'm gonna try to get everything. We officially launched. Oh my God, episode 4. We had episodes 1 through 3 come out. What? That's a recording this yesterday. And I think everyone's pretty enjoyed it so far. I hope that you enjoyed it so far.
Ah, yes, definitely. You're doing great, Zach.
And I
So
think
proud of you.
I'm really excited to keep going. This is so much fun. But anyway, if you haven't listened to those episodes, go back and listen to them because you don't want to miss some of the things that are said. It's wild. Anyway, thank you for joining another episode of the Cosplay Crunch. If you would like to ask a question to one of our guests, please email us at cosplaycrunchpod@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Cosplay Crunch Podcast for the latest podcast news and announcements, as well as on cosplaycrunch.com and on YouTube at the Cosplay Crunch Podcast. Also, please rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps the show. I think it helps promote the show and show it to new people. So please rate the podcast. It's really easy. It can only do it on mobile though. Just, find the little stars. Give us 5 if you like us. If you don't rate us. Go rate a different podcast. Meaghan, Viverra, do you have any parting words for our listeners? And also, what are your social medias so people can find you?
I think at this point, I really loosely use Instagram. So just at Viverra, Viverra. And I mean, at the end of the day, cosplay is just for fun. Like we all enjoy this. We're all a bunch of nerds. And I don't think that'll ever change over the years. So I love being part of this community.
Yeah. Oh, that's so sweet. I want someone to come on here and say something vile. I want
I mean, I can be vile if I need to be. I'm just
I want the
saying.
parting words from a guest to just be like truly evil and chaotic and just like shut off the podcast and be like, all right, that's a wrap. Thank you. No, thank you so much for joining. I'm so happy I got you on at the start of this, and don't be surprised if I drag you back in the future. So, yeah.
Of course, I'm honored. Thank you so much,
All
Zach.
right.
I'm so
Well,
happy.
until next time, thank you for listening, and we'll see you later. Goodbye.
Bye.
And that's it. Yay. I'll stop it. The Cosplay Crunch podcast is hosted by Zavage Cosplay, with post-production also by Zavage Cosplay. Original theme music by Katie Fairbanks. Logo and graphic design by Owl and Coffee.